So when you think about accreditation or certification systems in positive behavior support, I think it's really important to think about where you're starting. In Kansas, when I used to live in Kansas, we had a certification system on positive behavior support. And one of the things that happened is because we started there first, a lot of people thought, oh, we can't do positive behavior support because you have to go through certification to do anything. And really, positive behavior support is something we all do every day in our work. And it's really something important to think of in different layers of complexity. We do need people with expertise in positive behavior support, but it's also important to think about it from that perspective. So in Kansas, as people really understood that positive behavior support is something that we do within our organizations to change and make life better and improve quality of life, it became easier to think about certification systems. And I do think they're very important. One of the pitfalls is the cost involved in really putting a lot of time and energy into a training system because certain people won't have the funds to do that. In some of our states in America, the smaller rural areas really suffered because they were unable to afford to send somebody to that kind of a certification system. And they could benefit from lots of different types of training and workshop and support net sorts of things. So really focusing on a systems-wide approach where you have coaches that come out and support within the organizational setting to really develop expertise and to pick a few people who will develop that expertise, whether or not it's part of a certification system or not, is really, I think, one of the key messages that we learned. So when you think of accreditation for organizations, they're really wanting to implement positive behavior support effectively. I think there's a lot of positives around moving forward in that sort of way. You're really thinking about how do we set the stage where we can show really high fidelity of implementation at a systems level of positive behavior support. And accreditation systems can be one of those ways to do that. The other piece then is cost and how to move forward with an accreditation system. I think that one of the pieces that is really important to think about, excuse me, is no matter whether you're using the accreditation model or you're an organization that just wants to do the right thing, really thinking about what are the ways in which on an ongoing basis you're looking at how well are we implementing positive behavior support for all of our staff members, and do we have outcome measures that allow us to really show that these things are working effectively for us. And I think that either way, accreditation or moving forward as an organization that really wants to do the right thing, those are the key features that you want to have in place for implementation. So as you think about inspiring people when we're looking at implementing positive behavior support, maybe for the first time, and people are thinking, wow, what is this thing and why is it important for us? For what we've found in some of the work that we've been doing in Minnesota is that the really inspiring part of positive behavior support, whether you're working at a systems level or working with people on a positive behavior support plan, is the beauty is consensus-based decision making and really having the message that we are not experts delivering something to you. Instead, you have all the answers, and our job together is to find out what are the ways we can move forward. And when you do that, you find people's creative energy comes out and things are really fun, and it becomes something that is different than maybe a job that we have to do or we're solving a problem. Really, we're coming together as a community to kind of celebrate the strengths that we have within our organization, or if we're working with an individual, the strengths of that person. And that changes, I think, the feeling in the room, and how we proceed forward becomes more about making the world a better place. Well, when I was younger, and I was in my 20s, it was in the 90s, I had been working here in England. I was working in Kidderminster on positive behavior support in the Health Authority. And one of the things that, as I was working here, that I was running into is a lot of literature, just the beginnings of positive behavior support. Rob Horner was one of those people that I kept running into. And so as I went back to America to work there, the first thing I wanted to do is get a degree and kind of move forward with my educational pathway. And so I did seek out Rob Horner as my advisor over time, and he has been really instrumental in helping me understand the systems issues involved in implementing any kind of practice like positive behavior support. So I would say Rob Horner was my biggest advisor, mentor, and inspiration in this field as I move forward. So a success story that I will share is at the organization-wide level, and it was really occurring just recently. I've been working in Minnesota with teams, so teams representing mental health, public health, our counties, and provider organizations, so residential supports for people with disabilities. So the story I'm going to tell you is within a mental health organization, and a team got together to really think about how do we move forward with positive behavior support. And at first it was really tough. They were thinking about how do we do this? How do we get started? And I think what they really got excited about was this positive behavior support at a universal level. One of the things that they did is they looked at what they call the clubhouse, which is a place where people with mental illness and mental health issues come together, and it's a place to be. It's a place for activities and to come together as a community. So the clubhouse is where they started. We have in Minnesota two types of coaches. One is a positive behavior support coach, and one is a person-centered practice, person-centered thinking coach. And so together, those two coaches were thinking about how do we change the environment within our clubhouse. And what they did is they set up the regular meeting times where they do have sort of a meeting where all the folks in the clubhouse come together. In this case, it's up in a rural area in northern Minnesota, and there's about 28 people who were part of the clubhouse. So they thought, okay, well, let's separate people into 4 different groups. And so they kind of mixed people up, and they had coaches at each of the tables. And they started out with a person-centered thinking tool that's called What's Working and Not Working. So they said, what's working about the clubhouse? And they'd write all that down on flip chart paper in these 4 different groups. And then they thought, what's not working? What happens when things aren't going well? And so they kind of wrote those things down. And then together as a group, they said, okay, so now we know what's working. How do we create a way to think about supporting each other all the time using positive social skills and strategies? And so the folks in the clubhouse really decided we're going to look at these person-centered values that are important to us. And they thought about things like taking care of each other, respecting each other's space. And then they thought about the different times of the day within the clubhouse, and they identified the things that they wanted to make sure that they were doing to take care of each other. And the exciting part of it was that they really looked at ways to reinforce and recognize each other. They created ways to say thank you and have cards that they would share with each other just to let them know that they appreciated the things that they were doing to kind of really take care of each other and be supportive in this clubhouse setting. They also had a local artist within the clubhouse, and he created posters that helped to sort of represent these different types of values that are important to them. And actually, they started a big mural on the wall as well. The next phase of this process is really making sure that people are practicing and using these skills that they believe are important and continuing to look at ways to reinforce and recognize each other over time. And it really took off. I mean, people were very excited and empowered by, having a way to create a positive environment within their own settings and to be in the control of what that looks like.